Well, I told you I'd be back up here, and I had to do some introductions, so here I am. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Dennis Vai to be our keynote speaker here today. His brief bio is in your packet and in the program, so you can take a look at that. But I want to tell you, he's got quite a military career. He's a Signal Corps officer. He was the first to achieve 4-star rank in that being a Signal Corps officer. He commanded the Army Materiel Command. If you don't know about that command, it's one of the largest commands in the Army, 120,000 military and civilian forces under his command, in 38 countries and 41 states, and a $50 billion annual budget. Not too shabby. Prior to that, he was up in the Joint Staff at the J6, ahead of Command and Control and Communications and Computers, and of course, Cyber and Chief Information Officer for the staff. So he's lived and breathed the cyber initiatives, the cyber issues, and I'm sure he has a lot to add or delete in his talk today. In his civilian career, he's an Executive Vice President and Defense Fellow with Booz Allen. Please join me in welcome Dennis Vai.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Please help me out. It's a beautiful fall day, the second symposium. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Much better. Thanks so very much. Well, it's great to be here and to finally be here. If you didn't hear the story, I was scheduled to be here a little bit earlier, and I'm still learning how to trust GPS. Even though it told me to turn a certain way, I was able to tour the campus this morning on the other side, but I finally, through the help of some great folks, were able to get here. And it's great to be here at this great facility and certainly on the great campus of University of Maryland University College. And I'm honored to join you for this very, very important symposium. To General Eisler, Rod, thank you very much for that very kind introduction. Also want to, and also for serving as the symposium chair, as I understand the great work you're doing there. And a very special thanks to Lieutenant General Harry Roderick, my former boss, a lifelong mentor for me, and a dear friend, who extended the invitation for me to join you this morning as your keynote. And General Roderick reached out to me. He had a very unique approach. He said, General Vai, I know you're retired now. However, do you still believe in the American dream? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And he said, well, General Vai, do you still believe in the Constitution of the United States? And I said, of course. He said, General Vai, do you still believe in free speech? And I said, absolutely. He said, well, good. The Cyber Center would like for you to come over and give one. And so a very unique approach. No, seriously, if you know General Roderick, he doesn't approach that way. As soon as he reached out to me and I heard about cyber, more importantly, when I heard about education, I told him absolutely if there was any way I could be here. So, sir, thank you so very much for allowing me to be part of this great event today. There are so many distinguished guests here this morning to acknowledge. I don't know if he's still here, but the university president, President Myers, for hosting this great event and the great leadership he is providing for UMUC, which I understand has 10,000 strong in the graduate and undergraduate program in cybersecurity. That is fascinating. I don't think there's any other university in the country that has and can talk about that number of enrollment in the university. To Dr. Salmon, Superintendent of Maryland State Department of Education, thank you again for your leadership for this wonderful panel today. I had the good privilege of working with the state of Maryland during the base realignment and closure. When Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, the base that I commanded at the time, was moving 140 miles to Aberdeen Proving Ground. and probably the most challenging job I ever had in my career, but I learned to work so closely with the state of Maryland and the tremendous support that made that such a successful move. So thank you. And I think Ms. Cindy Whittick will be here a little bit later, if not today, the Cybersecurity Operations Mission Manager at NSA. So many corporate and industry representatives, to the many teachers who are here, students, staff, and faculty, administrators who were so instrumental in my life. And I would not have had the career that I had and the path that I was placed on without the great teachers who were in my life and kept me on the right path. And to the Master of Ceremonies, Mark Loper, thank you again. And other distinguished guests, my good friend, Lieutenant General Retired Soup Campbell. John, good to see you as well. I'm very excited to provide remarks at this very important and, in my professional opinion, vital event. I commend the original members of the cybersecurity think tank under the leadership of then UMUC President Dr. Aldridge and General Addigey, along with two of my Booz Allen Hamilton predecessors, Mark Gerenser and Admiral Mike McConnell, for their visionary leadership over 10 years ago that has led to today's event. As noted in the program, I was listed to provide remarks at the beginning of the program, but I'm so pleased that it worked out this way, because truly who we needed to hear from today were these young men and women who were on the stage. Absolutely. They were so impressive. If you think back, high school and college, I'm not certain I could have done that on the stage, and the questions and answers. And Antoine, I know there's a line for you out there somewhere. I'll hope to get in that line with you as well. Your extraordinary story and just the insights you provided were truly inspirational. The topic of cybersecurity is top of mind on so many levels across the federal government, within the Department of Defense, at the state and local level, and across the corporate sector, where cyber attacks constantly on the rise. The need to secure our networks is more critical than ever before, and highlighted on an ongoing daily and even hourly basis. We only need to think of the buildup to the past election here on Tuesday to see how important it is to have confidence in the networks that impact our lives, our daily lives. Our increasing reliance and in many ways dependency on network technology has come hand in glove with some unsettling statistics for cybercrime. I'd pause here and ask those in the audience who've been impacted by a data breach to raise your hand. I see I'm not in the minority here. That has happened to me at least 5 times. 3 times when I was on active duty within one of my own organizations. 1,579, that was the total number of publicly disclosed data breaches in 2017. If that seems that more organizations disclosed data breaches last year than ever before, it's only because it did. At 1,579, the number of breaches in 2017 was 44.7% higher than the 1,091 disclosed in 2016. And I don't know what the number will be this coming year. Business organizations such as those in retail, hospitality, trade, and utility sectors accounted for 55% of the breaches, followed by the medical and healthcare industry with 23.7%. 75% of proportion data breaches caused by external attackers. Contrary to some perceptions, external actors continue to pose a far bigger threat to organizations than do internal ones. Among the external actors, organized crime groups accounted for more than half, 51% of breaches, while 18% of attacks involved state-affiliated groups. Careless, negligent and malicious insiders with legitimate access to systems and data caused only 25% of those breaches. These are pretty sobering facts and indisputably validates the seriousness of the cyber issue and the challenges it imposes, with significant and growing impact to our lives, our well-being, our national security, and our economy. We're truly at an inflection point. So I'm very pleased that the Cyber Center for Education and Innovation is providing this forum to bring together so many distinguished leaders in the cybersecurity realm for an in-depth discussion regarding the current and future role of education in cybersecurity. The theme, attacking the roots of cyber insecurity, the role of education is so germane to the cyber dilemma we all face today, and that's producing the cadre of cyber professionals needed to design, build, operate, and defend our cyber systems and networks today, and more importantly, in the future. As Rod mentioned in his remarks, the focus of this symposium is education, and a critical part it plays in successfully addressing cyber insecurity. The underlying challenge we collectively face is a significant shortage of highly educated and skilled employees in fields essential to our national security and competitiveness. This includes areas such as computer science, data science and analytics, engineering, information technology, and of course, cybersecurity. At the forefront are new strategic technologies, such as augmented intelligence, machine learning, cloud migration, quantum communications and computing, and 5G communications, and the critical importance that cybersecurity plays in each one of these. Assuring dynamic growth in the U.S. economy in the 21st century will require a workforce with mastery of core content knowledge and applied experiences in these fields. In response, education centers across the country have been actively expanding the range of cybersecurity courses and programs that they offer, and working very hard to entice participation of qualified students. This widespread effort can be traced to a couple of very important issues. First, this is part of an overall response to the immediate cyber threats facing the United States. Second, and perhaps more telling, is the growing demand for degrees, certificates, and other courses related to the anticipated future need for more science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM employees. Although various published statistics relate to this current and future demand, the projections are truly astounding. An estimate from the Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that computer and information technology occupations will grow 13% from 2016 to 2026, faster than the average for all occupations. These occupations are projected to add approximately 557,000 new jobs. Estimates indicate there are currently more than 300,000 available cybersecurity positions today, with prediction of employment growth of 37% within the information security industry over the next 10 years, with 4 out of 5 cybersecurity jobs requiring a degree. And a recent study by my firm, Booz Allen Hamilton, concluded a global shortage of 1.8 million cyber professionals by 2022. And the demand for these workers will stem from greater emphasis on cloud computing, the collection and storage of big data, and information security. Faced with the current daunting environment, in attacking the roots of cyber insecurity, I believe strongly that education about cybersecurity, informing elementary, middle, and high school teachers, guidance counselors, and parents about all aspects of cybersecurity is an important first step and central to addressing the growing need for cybersecurity professionals. In fact, many innovative leaders in education and government are looking to introduce students to science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, much earlier in the K through 12, in the hope of igniting and encouraging interest in these fields and their continued academic study and awareness of career opportunities, which are multiple in this field. For example, the school district of Palm Beach County in Florida, launched its Cybersecurity Academy in 2016 as a single course in an existing IT program. Today, it is a 4-year dedicated cybersecurity program, giving students at 4 high schools the skills and certification necessary to enter the workforce upon graduation. The district plans to add 6 schools to the program by 2020. At the college level, led by universities such as UMUC, we are seeing greater interest and a lot of change with regards to cybersecurity. Once the domain of engineering and computing colleges only, cybersecurity is now considered over a broad range of disciplines. Today, it is common to find cyber programs from many other academic institutions, including business schools, management schools, natural sciences, and liberal arts colleges. Many of the courses are multi-departmental, reflecting the ubiquitous nature of today's cyber threats. Universities are creating cybersecurity centers and divisions, often as part of their engineering and science colleges, that help to coordinate academic efforts between the varying departments, as well as undertaking research and offering specialists expertise both internally and to industry externally. Ideally, these cybersecurity programs are designed to develop candidates that can work in any industry sector, all of which have a need to combat hackers, data thieves, and other cyber threats. There are many career options open to qualified cybersecurity professionals today. However, I submit there is much more we can, should, and must do. First and foremost, robust STEM education at all ages is a foundational element to cybersecurity education, and therefore should be considered for every student from K through 12. We must leverage innovative technology, cloud-based technologies, to improve the speed and quality of STEM education, leveraging augmented and virtual reality, AI, big data, and 5G to help address roadblocks in K through 12 and higher education. At the undergraduate and graduate level, we need to dramatically increase and expand scholarships, fellowships, and grants to make STEM education more accessible to students, especially for traditionally underrepresented populations in STEM. There's a saying that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. And oftentimes, children just don't have, young adults don't have the opportunity, although it may be something that they're very, very interested in. At the corporate level, we need to provide significantly more internships and apprenticeship opportunities, exposing these young men and women to the possibilities that are in these career fields, including at the classified level, especially with the federal government, because so much of the work we do in cybersecurity is on the classified side. And to begin young people in granting a clearance early on in those internship opportunities can help. Starting at the high school and continuing through the undergraduate and postgraduate level, along with postgraduate placement to fill critical cyber shortages. Based on the panels today, there are a number of seasoned professionals that will speak to the challenges as well as the opportunities associated with improving cybersecurity education and significantly increasing the availability, quality, and diversity of cybersecurity talent. The panels will offer important perspectives that will help us all collectively better understand a range of issues associated with the cyber education enterprise. When I reviewed the agenda, along with the business and technology perspectives, I was so pleased that we had the opportunity to hear from these impressive young students who truly are our future and offer perhaps the most important perspective. They really set the tone for today. My hope is that we were listening to the ideas and suggestions that they provided to us. At events such as these, we can often overlook, or worse, assume away the perspective of the student in examining learning issues. But in the case of cybersecurity, we do so at our own risk. The panel today highlighted for me so many obstacles and motivators, and some of the common themes that I heard as they went through their discussion were awareness, exposure, the importance of counselors early on to talk to them about what the possibilities are, diversity, the importance of diversity, the importance of opportunity, the importance of STEM early on, about having commitment and discipline. If someone asks, what do you have to give up? Well, we have to be creative to make sure they can continue without having to give up, and that they can have full commitment in multiple activities, even if they set STEM as a priority. They talked about the importance of foundation and about having alternate paths and alternate opportunities. And cybersecurity is so broad that there's so many areas. And what we have to be careful is to turn students off, if you will. Turn them away long before they've ever got started by making it seem that it was something that is not achievable. They talked about the importance of internships. But what I took away most is that youthful wisdom that they provided as they responded to the questions about what was important. And again, digital is their environment. They grew up with digital devices. When I heard about Oregon trails, I remember that with our young sons. We've got to produce the new Oregon Trail. How do we start that early on? Often when I travel, I see 2-year-old and 3-year-old children with a digital device in their hand. And I submit that's where we've got to gain their interest early on if we're going to make a difference. I'm always intrigued by new technologies, and especially the cybersecurity challenge referred to as a cyber moonshot that we'll hear more about later today. Needless to say, this is a very impressive and challenging initiative, modeled after the challenge presented by President John F. Kennedy, delivered during his historic moonshot speech to Congress in 1961. In his now famous speech, the president told the nation, and I quote, "Now is the time to take longer strides. Time for a great new American enterprise. Time for this nation to take a clearly leading edge and role in space and achievement, which in many ways may hold a key to our future on Earth," unquote. He challenged the nation to a seemingly unimaginable task. For those old enough to remember that, it just seemed out of touch, just unreachable, putting an American on the moon by the end of the decade. But we did it. We did it. And America responded to this call to action with tremendous energy and commitment. It was a stunning achievement, something unparalleled in the history of humankind, the kind of adventure that inspired everyone around the world, which put the United States ahead in the technology race. The technical achievement was absolutely amazing, but arguably it was one of the most important and lasting outcomes was at the education level. The moonshot effort resulted in millions of kids signing up to be engineers, aspiring to be as great as the hundreds of thousands of heroes who put a handful of heroes on the surface of the moon and return them safely to Earth. This is the kind of game-changing initiative we need today to attack the roots of cyber insecurity. And if we are to succeed in meeting the cybersecurity challenges I've spoken about for the past several minutes, and you'll continue to hear about throughout today, really to move the needle, it will require a moonshot initiative at the national level. Faced with the current environment, we cannot afford to do anything less. So in closing with today's symposium, all of us have an opportunity to truly make a difference, not only in cybersecurity, but in the lives of our students and with business and technology by charting an innovative path to the future. Your presence and participation in this symposium clearly communicates your commitment. Let's share that commitment with many others. To the members of the committee here, thanks again for the opportunity to be here this morning and to share a few remarks and to be part of this very, very important event. Best wishes for what I know will be another great symposium that will continue to build on last year and set the foundation for the next one next year. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sure. And the general will take questions, so if you'd like to queue up in front of the microphones, and as we remember, the process for questioning is we keep them to questions. General.
General Vi, thanks for such a meaningful set of remarks.
Well,
Question.
thank you.
Do you think that we have a language barrier when it comes to the adoption of a term like cybersecurity for the protection of our digital age? And here's what I'm thinking.
Sure.
When President Kennedy said, let's go land a man on the moon, we all knew what that meant.
Yes.
We knew it would take a lot of disciplines,
Yes.
and we pulled it all together. Do you think this term, cybersecurity, is a little daunting and misunderstood for such an important endeavor?
What a great question. And I think that's always the challenge that we have when we're trying to excite interest, is when we lay out a vision for where we want to go. And that's what President Kennedy did. He laid out a vision. But it was easily and clearly articulated. If we want to put a man on the moon, he didn't say we're going to build a rocket. We're going to build rocket engines, having served in Huntsville, Alabama, where they've got a lot of the work was done there. He didn't go into all the engineers that would be required, computer scientists, all the other work. He just said, we want to put a man on the moon, and we want to do it in 10 years. So I think your question is exactly apropos, because I'm not certain right now how cybersecurity resonates, the term itself, say with an elementary school student or a middle school student. So I think if there are ways, and that's what I talked about, we've got to have a conversation about cybersecurity with teachers. If you're speaking to a parent, and many of the panelists talked about it today, if you mention cybersecurity to a parent today, and I'll ask the teachers in the room, they really know what we're talking about, or what you were talking about. And if you say we want them to go into this career field, do they really know what that means? What will I do? So I think we have to relook, maybe. Maybe at the national level we can say cybersecurity, but I think we have to determine how can we better communicate to young people today to get them excited about this thing called STEM. I mean, that's the foundation to me is, not everyone will be, and you can see the diversity in the panel here in terms of the courses that they're taking and what they plan to do as they go through their careers. They're going to be doing 5, 6 different things here as they go into their career fields. So finding a way to better communicate, articulate, describe, that resonates with young people, I think is what inspires them, which lights their spark to say, this is something I want to do. And then the encouragement as they go through kindergarten, elementary, middle, and high school to continue on that path. Last point, I would say sometimes we have to be careful to frighten them away. I think I was a pretty good student in school. I enjoyed school. I enjoyed all of my teachers Well, most of my teachers, but I enjoyed all of my teachers. I had 12 years of perfect attendance. I never missed a day in school because I really loved school. I loved learning, education. But I didn't have someone take hold of me and say, Dennis, we need to put you in math or engineering. I'm certain I could have done that. But I didn't have someone to communicate to me that that was a possibility. So that was the one point I take away. But your question is exactly right. And maybe as we go through the day, as we talk to some of the young people who are here, I think we have to listen to them. What resonates? What doesn't? Great question. Yes, sir.
General Bhaiya, my name is Sanjeev, and just one comment. I enrolled for the Harvard University cybersecurity class, and I cannot even go there, okay? So how we can have a program or a opportunity to provide 5 to 15 million small business and small sole proprietorship businesses and people who work on high innovative ideas, as well as the people who are more than 60 years of age. Again, you look at the math, what is the percentage about the population of USA and its people. So how we can use the people at an earlier stage and without being a professional making $100,000, how we can use the students of high school and the next step and give them small tools to provide support for small businesses. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to make sure I understand your question. So how can we utilize small businesses, large business, be able to provide opportunities for students and be exposed to this cyber career field? I want to make sure I'm, okay.
No, I said that how we can give support to small businesses.
Oh, okay.
Using, they can afford, okay? They can afford, and the students don't have the tools. They're not trained, right? How we can use the students who are, you basically, all that I needed was a Kaspersky, because your McAfee or Norton Antivirus didn't work, okay? Kaspersky did work. So now, how do you get the students get involved at an earlier stage? Give them small stipend. You don't have to give them a full scholarship to universities. Give them small stipend to support people who are more than 55 or 60 years of age, and also small businesses who are disadvantaged because they don't have the resources to support. Big business, yes, they have a whole team.
Sure. Great question, and I'm not certain I'm in a position to be able to respond to that, but I think as we look at opportunities, small businesses are the engine that runs America. And so small businesses, if there's a way to provide some form through the Small Business Administration or some entity that could allow small business to be able to have a means to be able to offer internship opportunities, maybe that's a way we can look at it. When I speak with young people, to include my own sons, I tell when they were coming through, I encouraged them to go for an internship whether it paid or not, because they were building experience. And so I think we just have to be innovative in our thinking of how we provide those opportunities. It may not be a full 6-8 week internship opportunity, but there can be other things that we can do to expose them. And some of the trips I think that some of the panelists talked about today, exposing them to technologies, some of our cyber centers, other locations, maybe that's a way that we can go at it, and then just, of course, work to see if we can attract more and more small business to be a part of that. I'm not certain to answer your question, but that's certainly one we can put on the table to have a discussion about. Yes.
Hi, my name, for those of you, I'm George. I'm a graduate student here at UMUC.
Yes.
So what drew me to the field of cybersecurity was, for one, it was, of course, better job opportunities, but also the ability to make technology, for the ability to help society and enjoy the benefits of technology safely and securely.
Sure.
So one thing I was always told in the past, during the course of my studies, is that wars in the future are not going to be fought on battlefields, they'll be fought behind computers. So in the civilian spectrum, I'm looking at going into defense contracting for cybersecurity work. What can we do in the civilian sector to help, protect our national security and our infrastructures per se from a cyber threat and how it can come? Do you think over time there could be a cyber weapon that could be potentially as potent as a nuclear weapon per se? I'm sorry, this seems a little bit too extreme, but I'm trying to think in terms of defense contracting. How is STEM education and cybersecurity, critical for our national security?
Yeah. Well, I speak to my previous service in uniform when I was on the as J6 on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. When I worked for General Roderick at DISA, we couldn't do it alone without industry. And industry plays a critical role, continues to this day, as being an essential partner to the uniform organizations, to the Department of Defense, or across the federal government to be able to protect our networks against cyber attacks, to defend those networks. And so those opportunities are enormous, and we cannot hire enough people or bring enough people into those career fields to be able to do so. But yes, we work very, very closely with industry and corporate. And I think anyone here today will tell you that that's continued to grow and expand in the mission understanding and being able to deliver the kind of capabilities that warfighters need to operate, whether that's here in CONUS or whether that's in an overseas environment.
Do you think in one day in time, the benefits of cybersecurity and cyber warfare could potentially produce weapons that could be potentially as destructive as thermonuclear weapons?
I don't know if I could, I'm not a scientist. I'm not certain to that degree, but I would say building tools that can help us protect our networks and enable our commanders, whether they're on a ship, whether they're flying an aircraft, or whether they're on board a tank, or whatever the case may be, or they're infantry men and women on the ground, to be able to effectively accomplish their mission. Yes, I think we can give them the tools, and we are doing that today. But I'm not certain in terms of, where we'd go in terms of an actual weapon, from an offensive standpoint. But I'm certain there's probably work being done in that area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, General. My name is Marquita Friday from the Maryland State Department of Education. And
Yes.
I first wanted to comment on the previous gentleman who asked about small businesses, just so that everyone knows that there's always opportunities to connect to our CTE programs of study, specifically in IT, so students can have real-world opportunities and experiences even before they leave high school. And so that's one way to support small businesses. And my specific question is what suggestions would you make to get more professionals to actually teach in our high schools? Because what we find is that professionals can always make more money outside of education than they can make inside. So anything that we can do to attract more people into the field of education is always desirable.
Yeah, that's always a great question. I always say, just from standpoint of teachers today, we certainly don't pay them enough for what they do in their professions. And you see many who are great teachers leave the career field because, again, they're not being afforded a salary to allow them to have a quality of life. And so I think that's a national issue that we have to address. I know each state looks at it as well, but I think nationally we have to do that. And then second, maybe the way that the education system and how we teach today maybe has to change to be a little bit more innovative and adaptive to someone who would like to do so. And maybe they can't do it full time, maybe it's part time, or maybe there are other ways to allow them to be able, if they have a passion for it, that they can find a way to be able, say if they're working for a corporation, they can still teach whole classes. And some do that, especially at the graduate and undergraduate level. But could we come up with some ideas to do that in high school level? I think that would be great, but I'm not certain. But I think that's what we have to do. We have to look at different ways than our standard, traditional, and I think as a young man he asked, what if I wanted to go do that? Do I have to go back to school for 2 or 3 years to get a degree so I can teach? So I think it's just thinking differently about the role of teachers, but certainly we have to address the salary component. I think that's just something from a national level we have to do if we're really serious about building the kind of workforce that we're going to need and being as competitive as we need to be in the world today, in this global economy and this global environment that we're in.
Thank you.
Great question. Sir.
General Vi, I wanted to say a big thank you for the outstanding keynote presentation
Thank you, sir.
given us today. And I also want to say thank you for your belief and support of free speech.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I feel I've got a setup coming. I don't know. But I have a feeling I've got a setup. But no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think we all learn a lot from stories, from people who have been there and they've had rich experiences, the type of experiences that you've had. You started off in the Army, and we weren't talking cyber at that time. You kind of grew into it. And so I know at one point, as was mentioned, that you were the Joint Staff J6 in the Pentagon, responsible at that level for command and control communications and all. But I think you had an important cyber event that happened, and I wonder if you couldn't, recall from that experience, what it was. It's probably unclassified now, but how you responded to that and the kind of actions you took for those who in the future may find themselves in a similar position in a government or industry or academic environment.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Great question, General Roderick. Well, first, cybersecurity, as General Roderick said, was not on the forefront when I entered the armed forces. And I think I was first introduced to this thing called cyber warfare, cybersecurity, really was under your organization at the Defense Information Systems Agency, when at that time we had a joint task force for computer network operations and we had global networks under the Defense Information Systems Agency. But they were two separate worlds, if you will, even though they operated on the same networks. And we had incidents there that began when we had attacks on our networks and systems. And so at that point in time, it became very evident to me that I needed to do some self-study. We always talk about develop a thirst for lifelong knowledge. And I knew that this was an area I could adapt many other areas and different environments I had served in from the time I entered the Army, but this was totally different. The battle space was the world. And so I knew I had to learn more and more about cybersecurity, about how do we defend networks, how do we build organizations to be able to organize, train, and equip with these systems and capabilities. And so that really laid the foundation for me, I think, at DISA in the job when you were the commander of the Joint Task Force, when we combined those two organizations to become the Joint Task Force for Global Network Operations on the U.S. Strategic Command. And that's when I then learned more and more about the leadership component, command center, being able to work with industry to be able to see the network and see the intrusions and be able to react very, very quickly, and the patching that we had to do to the various systems and so forth. And then, of course, the next time was on the Joint Staff, shortly after Rampart Yankee, which was a major intrusion into our networks. And at that point in time, I don't think I came into the Joint Staff. It happened right before I got there. And the greatest lesson at that point in time is that my staff at that time, great people, but we were ill-equipped to really understand how to respond. The questions that the chairman and the vice chairman were asking us, what is the threat? What is the impact? How can we prevent? What are the actions we should be taking? We were ill-prepared to do that. And so we set about really just a whole process, a campaign, if you will, to learn about cybersecurity and the role that it played in our networks as we had forces deployed and began to grow from there. So I think I put it back in a nutshell that for me, it was that lifelong learning to begin to understand. I sought out many experts in this field. I reached out to universities. I reached out to think tanks. I reached out to some of my predecessors and many in the intelligence community because they seem to have a better grasp on this than most. And that's proven today as we see now with the U.S. Cyber Combatant Command, which is now a 4-star command And it's pretty, that should tell all of us how important it is to cybersecurity across the world. So I think it goes back to just, again, a recognition that, I had to self-teach in this area to learn more and to seek out and help also my organization grow. I hope when I left there, I left the organization in a little bit better position than it was. And of course, as I moved on to my latter part of my career, I was in the logistics business, and all of those systems operated on unclassified networks. And so then cybersecurity took on even more significance and importance because of the data. Being able to understand what we had, be able to see it, know where it is, and be able to respond to requirements. So, great question, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lynn Jelly, and I work at the Maryland State Department of Education. Thank you for your comments this morning.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that I watched 60 Minutes one night, and it showed a hacker sitting outside a bank downloading all the personal information from the bank's records about the individuals that bank there. And most of us know that when we have an incident like that, the bank will cover us, or a credit card company will cover us.
Yes.
And so we're not afraid of the incidents that occur. We think we're all covered. So I guess we all know about peanut allergies and the need to shred our tax documents, but we don't protect ourselves in the digital world. So how do you raise awareness among the general public? And I think the use of the word cybersecurity is one of the issues that prevents us from understanding more. How do we bring it down to the general public? I know my friends who are on Facebook that constantly get hacked from downloading information, and they don't understand why, but they're downloading viruses and they don't know it. So how do we make a general public announcement about this and get it embedded in the general understanding?
That's, again, another great question. I think more and more, and it's unfortunate, is because, as I mentioned early on in my remarks, when someone experiences a compromise where their data, their PI, the personal information, has been compromised, and it impacts on them, unfortunately, that's when they learn. Even in my own experience and knowing, when I receive emails, unless I really know, I don't click on that email. I've just learned that over time through mistakes that I've done so. I've had loans taken out and approved that I had no idea in another state. So unfortunately, people do find out, unfortunately, through something that has happened and impacted. And hopefully in most cases is not a major issue that destroys their credit or impacts them from that standpoint. So I think that can be part of, the discussion here, a national message, if you will, that we can begin to, that can resonate again, across all various communities, of why it's important to protect your information, why it's important as you go on the internet, starting with our children, to make sure they understand about going to various sites and responding to information. Because they're on those devices every day. And they're on there for many, many hours every day. Maybe technology can also help. I know we're seeing now in technology, at least on my iPhone, I get an update on how many hours my phone was utilized, or how long it was dormant, or whatever the case may be. Maybe there is a way to provide those types of alert. Maybe that can educate. So technology could be another part of it, but a national messaging to be able to talk about the importance of it and why we need to do more and more to prevent. Companies certainly are waking up to that. Target and other, I don't want to call any, but as they've gone through these compromises, they've taken on and understand the significance of a data breach. And so they're investing into their infrastructure, into their cybersecurity protection as well. But I think it gets back to, as someone asked a question a little bit earlier, how do we frame what we're talking about in terms that the common person, the average person can understand? And so I think that's a task we all have to take on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Sheldon Brown. I work at the Pentagon as well. What would you say is the most rewarding part of your day-to-day keeping threats at bay?
most rewarding in keeping threats.
Kind of keeping threats away and being sort of a frontline defense at the DoD.
Well, one is to ensure that, we run these tests internal to the corporation where, you'll get an email and whether you respond to it or not, you're phishing, okay? So I feel pretty good that I haven't had that happen so far, so I'll knock on wood. That's from a personal standpoint. What I feel most successful about is with our clients. And when we're able to help them, we're on the client site, we're helping them to be that first line of defense. And so from that standpoint, being able to see that we've successfully thwarted an attack, because there are thousands of attacks daily, and knowing that we hopefully made a difference in that attack being successful and not, I think that's probably the most rewarding experience that we can get on a daily basis. But it doesn't end. You can't become complacent. It's there every day, 24/7, 365. And so we know we have to continue to improve the tools that we use, the technologies that we use, the processes, the tactics, techniques, and procedures. And so that's what we strive to do each and every day.
I know you mentioned you were in the military.
I was.
Working with DISA, did you work with DISA?
I did. I was there for about 16 months.
Okay. What would you say kind of kept you up late at night more, being actually on the front lines physically, or?
Well, at that time, we were heavily involved in supporting operations in Iraq, so keeping the networks operational. Because if you had a cable that was cut, undersea cable, or you had a satellite link that went out, or a terrestrial link in theater, or you had any kind of communications issue where the commanders could not command and control and couldn't prosecute the war and all of the enabling capabilities that you need to prosecute a war. So it was keeping that network operational every day. And that kept me up because the networks never shut down, and so they have to be operational. And even if they're down for a few moments, no one remembers that they've been up 98% of the time. They remember the 2% they were down. And so each day you want to make sure those networks are operational, and especially working for a man by the name of Harry Roderick, I wanted to absolutely make sure that those networks stayed operational. Thanks for your service in the Pentagon as well. Okay, yes, sir.
Good morning, General. My name is Frank Kesterman. I'm a professor of cybersecurity here at UMUC.
Yes.
In speaking with employers over the past years, security clearances have been an obstacle to hiring people. Yes. We haven't talked about that yet today.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if, from your perspective of what you know is going on, the 1 year period is not unusual to get a security clearance of secret or above. And on the bottom end, when we see some interns being supported by NSF and NSA, we see there is a model, but a very expensive model. And what I'm seeing is that employers would rather hire somebody away and pay them an additional $10,000, $15,000 to do the same job, rather than wait a year and try and keep them employed in a non-secure working environment. So I'm wondering what your perspective is, what you're hearing of shortening the security clearance issue.
The security clearance process is a major issue. And it's a major challenge also because when we do bring young people on without the clearance, they're not able to perform the full task of the work that they would want to do or in the area and the spaces that they would like to operate. So it is a challenge. And I know there are efforts to, it's moved from various organizations in the federal government to have the lead for going through the clearances, and there's such a significant backlog in the clearances, as you know. If we can get it under a year, that's great. We'd really like to get it under 6 months if we could do something along those lines. Some of the initiatives we've taken on and I've seen to be successful, not only at Booz Allen, but I know many other firms do so. I know in the federal government as well, is that we attempt during the internship years for juniors and seniors is to begin that process, if we can, doing the internship. Maybe in the roles that they're in at that point in time, if we can have the justification for a clearance in the work that they're doing and get an interim clearance then, begin the process then, and then as they continue through their senior year, and I think there are requirements that they have to stay connected with that organization, maybe during the winter break, if you will, a short period of time that they would work with the organization. And then by the time they get ready to graduate, they've gone through the majority of the process. And so there's not such a long period of time after they graduate to actually be hired. And so I know that's one initiative that's being looked at, and it is successful. I've seen it work both in the federal government and in the private sector. So that's one way that I think we can address it. The other part, again, is with the NSTAC, as we put these ideas together, that's a powerful group. And they have the administration that they can offer suggestions and ideas. And so if you have suggestions and recommendations of how we, in fact, can shorten that time frame. But it is extensive. The work we're doing today, it's important why it is extensive, to grant clearances, to have people go in and actually work in these classified spaces. But we're seeing more and more of it, of the work, especially in the federal government, move to more classified. And it's because of the cyber attacks and the hacking and so forth. So it's an area we certainly have to, it's being addressed, but we've got to address it because it's going to get, I think, even more challenging as that pipeline begins to get larger of students coming through based on the initiatives and programs that are being put in place in education today. Great question. Okay, I guess the last one. Okay. Yes, sir, you have the last question.
Morning, General, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
In contributing to the national security goals, I'm speaking from the private and corporate organization perspectives. What do you think we can do or add to the list of our priorities in terms of building a synergy between the educational sector and the corporate sector?
What can we do to build better cooperation between industry and the corporate, I mean, through education and the corporate sector?
Correct.
Okay. You know, we have various organizations that, you know, research and development grants. I think working with adopting schools and programs, we've seen that as well, aligning with a particular university. I think we do that here with UC in a strong way. So I think working with the universities, working with the various departments, and aligning them with our business units in the corporate sector, I think is one way. Being able to work with some of the research grants and where we can do that jointly, working with various universities and colleges, that's another way from that standpoint. I think having forums like this where you're bringing together educators, those in education, college professors and university presidents, administrators, and corporate in a setting like this. When you're talking about, in this fact, the role of education here, and you've got federal government representatives here, you've got corporate here, and you have educators here. And so I think more of that type of, those venues that allow that type of dialogue to take place is really what allows us to better understand each other, better understand the challenges, and attack this issue collectively to make a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.